People are live right now. Guys, start asking questions. We're
trade
talking
me
about
spots?
LLCs
Nope.
and tax strategies. So we have a probate slash whatever attorney.
Probate slash whatever. No, just estate planning, probate.
He's an attorney, knows a bunch of shit. His name's Rylas. And then we have, you want to introduce yourself?
Michael
right here?
Velasco, Provident Accounting Services. I run business development for our firm. I am not the accountant, but I do all the business development, a lot of the LLC setup side.
Strategies, stuff like that.
Yeah, strategies, especially with S corps. So that's hopefully something we'll talk about quite a bit today. Is the reason why you should have an S corp, and if you have one, you might not even know why you have it. So
So the show's about to start in just a second, guys.
No, let's rock and roll right now, bro.
We have to do the
started,
introduction
right?
for
I'm
the.
gonna do it right now.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome to Saturdays with Jesse and Pace. We've got Michael Velasco, good friend of the show. You're primarily in retail sales, right? You've got a
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
Where are you at right now with your team? You guys are up in Scottsdale, I know.
yeah, we do about $50 million a year in sales.
Love it.
Yeah, do have a real estate photography company that I run as well. Do a little bit of that. Obviously.
Who's your primary client on the real estate photography?
Oh, we have. I think in the last 4 years we've done almost $1 million in sales. So it's
So is
a
that
wide variety.
listings?
Yeah, listings. Yeah.
Love it. So if you guys
Yeah.
have listings here in Phoenix, Arizona, reach out to MD Velasco on Facebook.
Yep.
What's your Instagram name?
MD Velasco. Yeah.
MD Velasco.
Yeah.
And then we've also got a returning guest, good friend of the show, and my business partner. He runs all of our construction. He's my probate attorney, Rylas Dana from Mott Legal, guys. What we're going to talk about today, we've got a handful of questions inside the Creative Financing group. We're going to go through some of those. Some of those might be high level. We might answer those in a different format, maybe another video format with a specialist. But today we're going to try and take a 30,000-foot view
Yeah.
and talk primarily about S corps and corporate structures. And Jesse, my partner in multiple businesses and good friend, he's also the owner of this studio. He owns Batch Skip Tracing, and this is a passion of yours, isn't it, Jesse?
Absolutely. We do have the show together, so you don't have to introduce me.
I know, but I want everybody to be reminded of your prowess every time we have the show.
So could I remind them of your prowess too?
Oh, sure.
Pace, he doesn't do much. No big deal.
I don't work that hard, guys. So, Jesse, this is a big passion of yours, corporate structure, tax savings, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
this will be a fun topic today.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Can I start it off with
Yes,
the first
please do.
question? I
Please
want to
do.
start off to these boys. So let's say you're a new wholesaler, you're just getting started, and you haven't done a deal yet. Would you set up a LLC before or after you started doing deals?
I would set up an LLC before. You're planning for success, right? You're planning to really knock it out of the park with your wholesale business. So obviously setting up a single member LLC,
Yep.
whether or not you're taxed as an S corp really depends on the amount of revenue that you're going to
We'll
generate.
get to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But just starting, just so you're running all of your expenses and stuff through a business is a good way to start than to being taxed to your personal name, because it's something else we'll get into, and that would be something with self-employment taxes. That's not fun, and I have a great story about.
I think he's
do
got a
too.
really good
I got
story
a
too.
great one we'll get into here. I'm going to get vulnerable with you guys today.
I love it.
Yeah, kind of.
I think that's the number one question I get outside of how do I do my first deal. The question I get is, should I have an LLC before or after I do my first deal? And my answer might be a little controversial.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear yours. And I'll give, it's great having it before. That's always best. But I want to say that shouldn't stop you from doing a deal, I
Oh,
would say.
correct.
So is that what you're going to touch on that part of it as well?
So that was going to be your point, wasn't it?
That's my point. I mean, you get a lot of people that have paralysis and by analysis,
Yes,
and they
yes.
go, "Well, I don't have an LLC. I can't start marketing. I can't do whatever." Guys, you can always go back and fix all your shit.
So
You really can fix it all.
yeah.
I actually have
It might be painful, but
It
you can
costs
go
more
back and fix
later
it.
depending on how much you wait.
I actually
to
have a
fix it,
really good
but-
hack for that.
Right.
So what you do is just go set up a new checking account, get a debit card, and then start running all your stuff through that. So your accountant could then see that this is where all the expenses are going through. Just don't be running it through all your personal stuff, because then you're going through. But that's what I did, because I didn't have one set up yet. And this was for the realtor stuff when I
Yeah.
started doing some marketing right when I got to be a realtor a long time ago. I just set up a new checking account and started running everything through that. That's simple.
That's great. That's super easy. I like what you said, though, about setting you up for success by creating the LLC. So it's
Single member LLC is what I would recommend for your average wholesaler. And if you don't set it up, I think you bring up a great point. don't commingle the funds.
Yeah.
That's one of our greatest challenges as an accounting firm is we have small business owners constantly dipping into the wrong account, and it becomes not only an accounting nightmare, but you really are undisciplined about what you're doing with your money too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me if this is true. Now, can someone with an LLC versus someone with a checking account, same situations, is it possible to write off more things with the LLC? Is there other advantages? Is there more tax advantages?
Well, I think the short answer is you can't become an S corp if you're just an individual.
Yeah, I'm
right?
not talking about that level.
I
yet.
think it's the same. It sounds like it's the same type of write-offs
It's
because
the
you're
same,
paying
yeah,
the
Schedule C. Yeah.
you're paying self-employment tax regardless of those. And we should probably, once we finish this conversation, we should transition into self-employment tax and S corps.
The killer, 15.3%. The killer.
What I tell people, like, I don't know if you can get maybe more aggressive. I say ask your accountants.
Yep.
But I say you might be able to get more aggressive if you're in an LLC, a separate business entity, as far as your deductions and things that you're taking, versus if it's on a Schedule C and part of your personal return.
So
For people that don't know, what's a Schedule C?
Schedule C is a line item list of deductions for your business or for you personally. So that's really what you're going to do to deduct the cost of doing business.
Okay.
So most people file, 1040 is the form for taxes.
Right.
Schedule C is a part of that.
Yeah.
And then some LLCs, they can be treated as an individual, taxed as an individual or a partner, right?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you set up the LLC, but you can take the standard deduction, which is $24,400 for a married couple, $12,200 for an individual, or you can itemize. So if you're in a situation where you have enough write-offs, then you would want to itemize. So it just obviously depends on how much money you're making, how much business deductions you have. But once you start getting your business going, you're going to exceed that $24,200 pretty easily. So.
Right. So I guess let's hop into like the hot topic is, S corp, and you guys want to explain like the benefits of S corp, when to set up S corp, what a S corp is. Mm-hmm. I understand it, but I'm probably not going to be able to explain it. I have one.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is what you do.
I think that's the biggest thing that when clients come to us is they have an S corp or they want to start an S corp, and neither of them, in both cases, they don't know what it means. Like we have people that have S corps, they have no idea the reason why they have it. And the idea behind an S corp, and just so everybody's clear, your S corp is a tax election for your LLC. Typically, you're going to hold an LLC, and you're going to be elected to be taxed as an S corp.
Correct.
And so people get that confused.
What
They
are the
think
alternatives
the alternatives
other than an S corp?
S corp? You can go straight LLC, but on that income, you're going to be paying the entire 15.3%.
On top of the tax bracket you're in.
On top of the tax bracket. So if you're in a 20% tax bracket, you're going to throw that 15.3% on top.
I got to do that. It was
And
fun.
I've done that
That's
before.
that's the self-employment.
The
Yes.
self-employment tax, or I kind of refer to it as a penalty to let people it helps them understand a little bit better. So when we're setting up an S corp, it's to basically try to mitigate that 15.3%. So we'll set up a reasonable salary on an S corp, whatever wherever you are, your state and your business. But if you're making $100,000 in income, for example, you're setting up a salary of $30,000. That $30,000 salary carries that 15.3% self-employment penalty. The rest we take as a distribution. That's the extra $70,000. So it's like a $10,000 tax.
So what you're actually doing, the best way I've been able to ever explain this to somebody is, so I have an LLC, let's call it ABC LLC. Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing in that LLC is I'm W-2ing Jesse Burrell
You are.
For the 30,000.
for the $30,000. And that other $70,000, you're able to owner draw or
Is that-
distribute.
Distribution.
Would you call it a profit distribution?
Distribution or dividend. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then that $70,000 now will not be taxed at 15.3%.
Correct. Just your state and federal taxes is what you're paying on that. Yeah.
So
So it's
do we all
huge.
learn that lesson too late and pay more taxes?
So-
And
I
then
think
a
we've all
CPA
learned that.
I want to hear his
taught
story
us?
because then I want to tell mine because we
Let's
probably
hear-
have similar
Let's
stories.
hear your story.
So I thought I elected S corp, but it wasn't set up right. I didn't have my W-2 set up yet, and I netted $165,000 So if you want to do that math, that put me at like almost what a 50% tax bracket
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. And I was so excited. It was the first year I made over 100K, and I gave half of it back to the government. So I learned a very tough lesson, and that's when I really started diving into strategies and understanding, how to properly, deduct my money and do things the right way.
So I have a question about this. So you get a lot of clients that will come to you. Maybe they haven't filed in 2 or 3 years.
We have a little bit of that. Yep, for sure.
Right,
Yeah.
a lot of mom and pop businesses. So
Yep.
I've looked at a lot of companies' P&Ls that have come to me, especially in the group home business.
Yep.
And they come to me and they go, hey, I want to sell my business. I want to cash out. I want to retire. Great. Show me your books.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you guys haven't filed in 12 years. Oh, this is a major problem.
It's a huge problem.
You guys
Right.
run into that from time to time?
We do. Yeah, we have clients right now who haven't filed in 4 or 5 years that we're helping try to
Clean back up.
navigate their way through. I think what happens is they start in your case where you have this huge liability. What happens is they just put their head in the sand,
Right.
or file an extension, which I was good at back when I was starting to first make money.
I filed extension. I paid it too. It took me half of the next year because
Yeah,
I didn't
right.
have all that money because you buy things.
So my question
Yeah.
is, let's say you have a client that just has a regular LLC from 4 years ago. They haven't filed for 4 years. Can you go back and elect for them to file that as an S corp 4 years in the past?
Just the last year, like I think March 15th is the deadline for the previous year, but you couldn't, to my knowledge, go back for the previous 3 years and try to do an S corp filing.
Well, let's
Yeah.
let's assume they haven't filed for those 4 years prior.
That's a good question. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay.
My partner definitely can. So I'll get the answer for you on that. I'm not exactly sure if we can go back and retroactively
in
do it.
the Facebook group, jump back in there and maybe answer that
I
question
will.
underneath. That'd be helpful.
I will.
Do we have any people live that have some questions right now?
We have a whole bunch of questions.
Okay, let's rock and roll, baby.
Can you pay yourself a W-2 income by using your company's S corp salary distributions to satisfy traditional lenders looking for that 2-year history to purchase your own property?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Yes and no. If
they're
you're
go-
self-employed,
Yeah, you're self-employed. They're going to take the whole tax return as your income,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yeah. So if
No and yes.
so if you're just trying to take a really high salary to qualify for a bigger house, it's not going to really work that way. They're going to take the whole.
Yeah.
The only time it's different is if you own less than 20% of the company. They typically will take the W-2 income as an employee. So, and I've actually had that case happen to me where I owned less than 20% of a company. They took it as income, the straight W-2, rather than looking at the tax returns for the company.
Got it.
Yeah.
What else we got, Pace?
Okay, so this is a question we actually talked about earlier that you said this might be a little bit too granular to get into. We're purchasing properties nationwide. We're based out of Boca Raton, Florida. Should we be creating new S corps for each property, and should we establish in the states we're operating, or keep them all based here in our home state where we reside?
Yeah, pretty high level. I think I love the fact that he's in Florida because there's no state tax, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So obviously, if you're buying multiple properties in multiple states and you're taking this super high level, you need to have a tax attorney and you need to have a really, really good tax professional before you start opening up a can of worms with making a bunch of different LLCs for each property, the tax work that goes involved, the accounting that goes involved with that. Like, what is the best strategy that really, sometimes I think we overcomplicate it. We're like, well, I have 15,
But you don't want an
properties.
S corp for each one. Like you want all those to funnel into a holding company.
Exactly, yeah. And then take that, distribute, your salary off that, and then the rest as a dividend. Probably is the best advice I can give. But that high level stuff, don't go cheap on a tax attorney and a qualified tax professional. Like you need to really sit down and make sure you know what you're doing before you start buying.
I mean,
properties all
I'm
over the
paying
country.
over $20,000 a year for my accountant.
Yeah.
Because we have strategies.
It's worth it. Right?
We have a lot of different things.
That
He
saves you,
even
though,
I
more
even
than that.
I even overpay him. I trust him. So, he does my books too because he knows my business so well.
Yes, yeah.
To where like a bookkeeper for. Yeah, we have a bookkeeper for other companies, but like for everything that funnels to my holding company,
Right.
he runs everything through that, and he knows it deeply. So I pay $150 an hour for someone that's doing my books, but I do that for that reason, is because he understands what we're trying to do.
Super high level understanding of what you guys are trying to accomplish. Yeah.
I have a question. So I had a probate attorney actually. She's done a lot of stuff for me. Her name is Danielle Graham. She does a lot. It seems like probate attorneys are doing a lot of estate planning and a lot of structures in that regard, family trusts, all the way down through. So I had her set up a trust. I should have you look at it. And then I have a holding company owned by that is owned by that. And then underneath my holding company, I have close to 20 LLCs that funnel all up to that holding company.
That's what I do.
Are you doing any corporate structures like that, or are you pushing that out to like a CPA or somebody?
That's
to
like the
help
CPA and the business side that helps design the structure as far as the income part.
Yeah.
Where I come in is in two ways. The first part that affects most people is probate. We just want to figure out a way to figure out a plan to pass the assets. The next part where it gets a little deeper, I was talking to you about this, Jesse,
Yeah.
is it's about asset protection. It's about moving some things out of your name or getting them in a structure where they're protected from lawsuits, protected from estate tax in the future. So that's why all these people need to meet on the strategy, because saving income taxes is one thing, but if you build up a big portfolio, is it going to get hit with the estate tax when someone passes away? You know, we want a way to transfer things, and then also we want to try to provide a way where you're protected from liability from any lawsuits. So that
So let's say a client comes into your office, Michael, and they need a corporate structure. Who are you typically referring them out to? A CPA, or how are you typically doing that now?
The actual LLC setup?
Not just LLC,
Like
but
the
this
structure,
actual
like
structure.
holding companies, like
Oh, the holding company, yeah. Well, we obviously have a tax attorney, but we've got Kurt is a great resource, and so he's our senior accountant. So a lot of times, he'll come up with a strategy that's really good for them, and then advise them, send them to the right place, and then obviously we set up the companies.
So let's say that I'm brand new in real estate. I live here in Phoenix.
Yep.
What do you guys provide for me to come in and start? You guys do a free consultation? How does that work?
Yeah, we do. I think that it's kind of interesting you bring up the real estate side, because last week I set up 3 PLLCs for real estate agents that were messed up by the CPAs. They don't have an understanding of how to work with the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Their requirements that are to set up the PLLC.
It's
so the
very
language-
different than an S corp. Very different.
And so when you start setting them up and you do them incorrectly, then the Arizona Department of Real Estate kicks them out. Well, a lot of these clients will spend $500, $1,000, send it over to a CPA that doesn't understand how to work with some of the professional governing bodies, and then they end up coming to us going, "How do I, why is this wrong?" And they'll have for example, real estate agents have to be in their name. They set up some property name, some fictitious property name, and then they get rejected by the Arizona Department of Real Estate. So just knowing, if you are going to use a CPA to do that, I think I would ask them a question: have you done it before? And so if it's a real estate agent, for example, we'll go in and visit with them about their business, whether it makes sense to go to an S corp. If they're making $40,000 a year in commission, it doesn't make sense. And we find in our business, CPAs and accounting firms are great at getting people to spend money on setting up. Yeah. Like, let's do an S corp for you when they have no business being in an S corp and the fees that go along with it.
So I have a quick question. I have my license and I have a PLLC.
Yes.
But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have to change your license name so I changed mine to Jesse Burrell PLLC is
Correct.
what's on my license.
Correct. Yep.
So that's really weird. So every time I'd fill out a contract, like that's what my agent name is.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of different things I believe to where you could only write off, like for real estate, the only income that could come in is from MLS deals.
Yeah, from your real estate business. It actually
Traditional real estate business,
Yeah,
not your
traditional.
investing. You can't commingle wholesale and traditional real estate.
Yeah, they want your professional designation to be under your the revenue that comes in
Through your
you.
broker.
Yeah, through your broker. So real estate brokers cannot pay an LLC that isn't a PLLC. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So in order to set it up correctly,
I learned that today.
Yeah.
So
Really?
Well, just before we were talking, I didn't realize realtors were in that group of the PLLC.
Yeah,
They had to have a
absolutely.
professional one.
When I got into wholesale, I got a PLLC because I thought I was like, oh, professional. I'm a professional.
Yeah.
And then when I went and sat down and got my corporate structure, my attorney, Danielle Graham, was like,
What do you do?
you're stupid.
I
We have to
think-
go back and fix all of
Because
this.
they're both S corps, right? But they're different.
I think the P. So my law firm is just an LLC with an S election.
Yeah,
but
S
it's
election, yep.
the P just means you can be sued for malpractice. I could do one. I could have done a PLLC for my law firm, but what it means is that as a professional, in that with a license, you're like the realtor. They're just making it clear that.
Yeah, the P, just to clarify for everybody watching, the P is the professional designation behind the LLC. And then the taxation, the S Corp, you file Form 2553, and that actually designates how you get taxed. So you could be an LLC without an S Corp, and you can be an LLC taxed as an S Corp.
So I have two S corps. I have a PLLC, and then I have one for my wholesale too.
Yeah, so you have two, basically under each of them, yeah.
Should
Makes sense.
the LLC be at least a 2-member LLC so you can get all the benefits from an S Corp tax advantages, or is a single member okay? Thank you.
Single, there's no benefit to having two members.
Two
on
members is if you have a partnership.
I'll debate
Yeah.
this with you. Me and
Yeah.
my attorney friends.
Okay.
In the attorney group, they debate whether how much protection there really is in the single member LLCs.
Oh, interesting.
We like the multi-members, and we like filing the 1065 partnership.
Okay.
The 1065 is the tax returns partnerships file.
Okay.
So that way you're separating all the business things of that in just one place.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if the business gets audited and it's on a Schedule C, they say, "Let me see your personal tax return," and you're showing all those things.
I
So
could see how you guys would want to do that, but I think for
So-
purposes of wholesalers, is there a benefit to having a second member from a taxation? Not necessarily,
Not that I know.
and the
Yeah.
question becomes is who do you make that member?
right?
So
They just have the 0.5% or something like that.
so you can have, this is where it gets into that higher level, like the irrevocable trust, when you're moving some things out of your estate. So you can have like an irrevocable trust be that second member in an LLC. I set up structures that way because I wanted it to be a multi-member LLC because I want to file the 1065. So I had, so it's basically myself one side as a revocable trust, and then myself the other side, or another trust, which is irrevocable.
So let's try and circle back to more of like the new wholesalers getting into this. What are some more questions that they have? Because we're getting very like,
That's pretty deep for most people. I
Yeah.
would say single members is about the same, but it's some of those liability issues.
If you already have an LLC, how do you go about switching it to an S Corp, MD Velasco?
Basically, you file the form. I think
so you
the
just
thing
go
is-
to your accountant and
go to your accountant. Yeah, that's what I would do. Is go to the accountant. It's basically a form that they file with the IRS to take the tax designation as an S corp filing.
I
So
have
it's
a
not
really good question for newbies because people don't understand how to do their own bookkeeping, right? And I think QuickBooks is trash, and I think I think bookkeeping sucks. Everybody does it horribly. The only people that do it well are the ones that are professionals at it. I feel like every time I've had somebody in my office doing it, and they pass it on to my CPA every time criticized everything.
That's exactly what Kirk does basically
That's
on
why
a daily basis.
that's why my CPA
Yeah.
does my bookkeeping, because then he can't bitch about
Yes.
my bookkeeper.
Yeah, yeah.
I spent
There's a
10
lot of
years
truth to
going
that.
back and forth,
There's a lot
back
of
and
truth to
forth. So I'm brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making maybe $50,000 a year. What would I pay a company like yourself to do basic bookkeeping for me on a yearly basis, plus my tax return? What would I look at on a yearly basis? Is
Yeah.
it 20 grand? Is it 1,500
No,
bucks? Is
I,
it?
I think if you're a new wholesaler making $50,000, I would do probably quarterly bookkeeping reports.
Okay.
And like ours, we bill at $200 a month, so it's basically $600 a quarter.
That's good.
And then $500 for the Schedule C return. or
Okay,
the
so
LLC return.
if you're a brand new wholesaler, and let's say you're a nurse, and then you're moonlighting as a wholesaler, and
Right.
you're doing a transaction every other month, and you bring in $50,000, $75,000 a year or so in income, you really don't have a lot of transactions to bookkeep on. So
Right.
you're saying don't do it monthly, do it quarterly.
Do it quarterly.
Therefore, you're going to pay $200 a quarter or $200 a month?
$200 a month, so $600 a quarter.
Okay,
Well,
so
It'd be
we're looking at
$2,900 total.
$2,900 a year for that basic level. At what point would I be paying over that $2,900? Let's say how many more transactions, how much more in income?
you go monthly. When you start going monthly, where you really need to dissect that on a monthly basis, going through all of those expenses, finding out, month over month, year over year, what's really working, what's not working. Because what happens at the end of the year for a lot of these business owners, small business owners, is they look at the books at the end of the year and go, oh my gosh,
I didn't make anything, or I made a lot.
I made a lot, or like, why was I doing that? Why was I spending all that money on the marketing piece that didn't work, right?
Question for you.
Yeah,
Are you monthly or quarterly doing your
Monthly.
books?
monthly.
We are daily. Just kidding.
So for a long time when I was running my construction company, I had a girl in-house and I was paying her $7,000 a month.
Holy shit.
But I was doing $1.5 million in revenue, so we had a
You
lot.
had so many
She
transactions.
was writing
Rather
checks.
than-
She was
yeah.
paying people. She was
Okay.
going through every single job description and paying the contractors and verifying workman's comp. She was doing a lot more than just
She was an
accounting.
office manager.
She was an
really.
office
Yes.
manager and controller, essentially, right?
Yep.
So the challenge is she was doing things she was always doing things wrong. And she would do them based on the way she learned them before. And then she and my CPA were constantly arguing. So when I turned the switch off for my construction company, I said, never again will I ever have a QuickBooks account, because I hate having QuickBooks, having to remotely log in, because if I have QuickBooks Online, it has limited data that I can pull. And it's like, oh, I want to pull a report based on how many hot water heaters I used on all my flips. Oh, sorry, QuickBooks Online doesn't allow you to do that. Great, let's go to QuickBooks Enterprise. Well, that's $4,000 a year, and you have to have it on a desktop, and you have to remote log in, and blah, 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 blah. We got rid of all that crap, and now I just have a bookkeeper inside my CPA. They run everything. They go through my transactions, and they send us a P&L every month.
So that's actually what I was going to say. Make sure when you hire your bookkeeper that them and their CPA get along. You took it a step further to just say, hey CPA, use one of your bookkeepers for my business.
Correct, and I don't care if they fire the bookkeeper. It's up to them to replace the bookkeeper. I don't even need to know the bookkeeper's name.
Correct.
I don't want to have anything to do with any of the management, any of the issues. I just want my report at the end of every month telling me where I've screwed up and, hey, your marketing mechanism on direct mail is not really bringing you guys any results or whatever it is. Like, you guys spent this, but you brought in this. Stop spending the marketing. They're not going to sit down and tell us where we're overspending and not, but they'll send us a P&L and go, holy crap, we spent that much money on whatever.
To speak on that, that's where, you're getting into a fractional CFO now.
Right.
So like Danielle Kroll and Jared Vidalis, they have a fractional CFO. So like they see, I think they're with them, it might be monthly or quarterly, but they know down to the penny where they spent their money and what their return was. And that's something that we've been talking about getting pretty soon. But I think like for the bookkeeper and CPA part, me and you have that dialed in pretty well now.
Do most of your clients manage their own QuickBooks and then have you guys do the accounting?
It's probably a 50-50. Yeah, I'd say. Back kind of to the monthly thing. I think it's a good idea if you're doing significant business to do it monthly. Take a look at it and really dissect it. But a lot of us we're really good at what we do, and then not necessarily good at the book piece, right?
Honestly, out of all the people I know, I really don't know anybody that does it well, likes to do it, or even does it well at all. So I would suggest never doing it to anybody. I mean, most of the small businesses you guys see, I guarantee they don't come in with their books and go, hey, and you reply and go, man, you guys are doing a killer job.
Yeah, no. Kurt, we had one last week where Kurt dissects
I guess
it.
that from my accountant said, all right, that's actually good. We use QuickBooks and
What version of
You guys are
QuickBooks do you guys
attorneys
use?
though too.
online one. But I don't need as much data. I have it broken down into a lot of different categories, but I can get all the data I need out of it that way. So
I feel like the amount of money I don't spend on having my own QuickBooks any longer, and I don't even have a login. They just do everything for us, and they ask us questions. The cost of the amount of money I save on not having somebody doing it, and the cost of my QuickBooks is what I basically pay for the offloading it to a CPA.
Yeah, I think for some of our wholesalers too that are listening, it's how much time are you going to be spending on doing the QuickBooks,
Bingo.
and during that time that you're spending each month, how much are you actually losing, not prospecting, not
Right.
closing deals? And so, what are you? Are you an accountant? Are you, are you somebody that can sell a lot of real estate or wholesale a lot
It's
of
the
real
same thing
estate?
if you're fixing and flipping a house. Why are you painting the house yourself? Like, you have way more important things to do.
Right.
Go find another project. Go find better sources of money.
Leveraging.
Leveraging.
Leveraging, yeah.
And accounting is the number one thing I think in your business that you should be leveraging. But people are afraid of it. You guys are like the dentists.
People can't afford it, they say. I can't afford it.
I remember.
It's
Kinda
it's an
do-
expense. You write it off anyways.
I think you can't afford not to. Is
You
what
can't
I would
afford
say
not to.
though.
Yeah.
It's like that. Whatever the price is, a good accountant's probably
So-
going to find more than that.
I hope my girlfriend doesn't watch this, but today she's like, "Hey, your accountant called me to do my stuff," and she's like, "How much is it going to cost me?" And I was like, "If you're going to ask, then just go do it yourself."
Ooh, we're getting a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I just logged in. So, so when you get the distribution, what rate do you pay?
You pay your whatever your tax category is both your state, if you're in a state that has state taxes. So in Arizona, we're in Arizona, you're going to pay your state rate and your federal rate. On
And
the
then whatever
income rate.
tax bracket you fall into.
Right.
But you're not paying that additional 15% for self-employment tax. That's where you're saving all the money.
Love it. All right. So if you use personal funds to get the S corp going, can you deduct from your S corp taxes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a business expense. You'd be reimbursed for the money that you spent to
Correct.
form it.
Daryl Banks asks, I'm new to wholesaling, about 2 years now, done only 3 deals. When and what kind of business type should I use?
Right now, he should just be a single member LLC.
Single member. Yep.
So Daryl, single member LLC, you need to go and get hooked up.
So this brings up a great question. When should I start an S corp?
So I have a question, and I want to ask you.
Okay,
Because
hopefully I have the answer.
this is what I was told, is when you're doing netting over $50,000, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Is what I was told by my accountant.
Yeah, I think the number I always use is 60 to 70, but you're right in the wheelhouse, right?
And it's faster than I thought. I thought you had to have more income before it made sense.
Because that self-employment tax, you're gonna get hit with another 15%. So at 60K, what's your
tax rate of, let's say,
What is
all
it?
in 18%.
and then you have 15, so then you're at 33%. So
That'll probably save a lot of people watching. Just
Yeah,
that
there are some costs that people always ask, well, what are the downsides of an S corp? So you've got your payroll
Payroll.
costs, right? So you want to get set up with ADP or Paychecks. I
Yeah,
like
but you
big
can have a
companies.
bookkeeper do all
You
this
could.
stuff for you
If-
at your CPA.
Also-
they do all of our payroll.
Yep.
I don't. So I'm set up for X amount of dollars a month. I don't actually draw that money. I just pay the taxes on it.
Right.
I don't actually take that money, and when I need money, I just take my distributions.
Yep.
That's how I do it.
Yep.
So I'm just paying my taxes every single month, but I'm not actually taking the money that I'm supposed to be making, or that I'm making. Does that make sense?
That's interesting.
I don't take a paycheck. I just take the taxes, and then this probably isn't the best way to put it, and I just rob my account when I need money, and for personal stuff.
But you're making regular tax payments.
Every single
You're
month.
making regular
But
tax
on the
payments.
So let's say I make $120,000 a year. I take $10,000 a month. I'm not actually taking that $7,000 that I'm making out of that. I'm just paying the $3,000 taxes, and then the rest of my money stays in my account, and I take distribution when I see fit.
So kind of back to the point, like we were talking about that $50,000 to $70,000 mark. Anything over, it's time to start filing as an S corp.
So I had a couple of people already ask. So this means we didn't do a great job explaining who you are.
Oh yeah.
Do you know of any good bookkeepers in the Phoenix area?
I think that's the one thing we left out of my resume.
Yes.
So so I'm a partner in Provident Accounting Services in Old Town Scottsdale. My partner, I am not an accountant. I'm the business development side of our firm. Our accountant is Kurt Dodge, who is a University of Nebraska alumni. Anything and everything accounting he does. He does all the taxes, bookkeeping for our firm. So so if you're in
How do they
Phoenix,
get a hold of you, bro?
you can call me on my cell, 480-200-2914. Love to help you.
On the video, when you jump into the private Facebook group, make sure you put your cell phone number
will.
there. And I
I
do
will.
appreciate you being in the private Facebook group as well.
Yeah,
we appreciate you guys both being here, getting high-level professionals. Like, we're very very happy that we could have you guys here and help
It's
new
fun.
people getting into the
It's
business.
intimidating, this tax thing where with the S corp and what do I do, and then you actually start making money, and then you're like backtracking because
Right.
that's what happened to me. I A couple of years in real estate, I made $458,000 in gross commissions. I got it down, tax deducted to 185, and my tax bill was 58,000. Here's the problem.
You didn't have it left.
I didn't have $58,000. I had a big problem, and so one of my passions is really helping people not get in that situation, because that's a really scary situation to be in. You talk about people not filing their taxes. That's what happens. It's a horrible place to be emotionally and spiritually when you're behind that type of, you got that big of a problem. And so it's really wise to start setting up those strategies earlier. Yeah, you can always go back, but it's a really good idea to make sure, making your estimated quarterly tax payments, like being responsible, because I was guilty of spending the IRS's money. Like, let's buy a Mercedes. Let's go to Hawaii.
Yeah, people don't realize 30% of all that money you make, you should be storing away.
That's what remember every deal. Every deal comes
It's a
through.
horrible place to be.
So for you, do you make quarterly payments?
We make quarterly payments, yes.
Yeah.
I do not,
Why not?
because we do save a lot of money, but we want to be using our working capital instead of giving it to the tax man.
Yeah.
We use it to flip houses and make money on that money instead of shoving it in there. For someone newer, that is not the right way to go about it. I would definitely say make quarterly to where you're shoving money into there to where you don't get a hit with a huge bill.
Yeah.
But we do it a little bit differently.
You're running a machine, and you guys are really responsible about it. But I think 90% of the rest of us are just trying to get by, like just trying to pay our bills.
Well, I still hate getting that big bill one time a year.
I know.
Is not fun. Like,
That's a killer.
I gulp, and then I go online and wire money in, and I close my eyes and I hit the button because it's not fun to do it.
Yeah.
The biggest check I've I wrote for a client was a tax bill for it was like almost $1 million. It was like hard to fit on the check. It was like $997,500.
When you were settling the estate?
It was this was a while ago, but we were it was my dad's law firm was the trustee for an estate. So yeah, settling it up, and this was a lot of tax savings though. This was back in the day when the exemption was around $1 million.
I see.
So it was, the estate tax affected a lot more people.
Well, you guys deal in wholesaling with probate all the time, right?
All the time.
He does. We don't do a ton of probate. We
probate.
have,
You do?
I do a ton of probate.
Yeah,
but
when
you
they're-
go after probate stuff. We get some stuff that has to go through probate. I'd say 10 to 15%. We probably
What is
have
your
to deal with.
timeline on average probate, by the way? I'm sure folks are interested in.
Pace?
That's the most common question I get
Okay.
when from the wholesalers. So you have a timeline to get appointed to sell the property.
Okay.
So it takes my office, once someone hires us for a probate, about 3 weeks to file the first paperwork, to get that all ready. And then it's going to sit in the court about 2 to 3 weeks. And then they'll approve it, and then they'll appoint the personal representative of the estate. So that's about 4 to 6 weeks. But then you have to finish all the steps of the probate.
Yeah.
But they can sell the property once they're appointed.
Once they're appointed, they can then sign a contract
And then
for
close escrow,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, you don't need
So how long would
one
it
of
take
And then-
to close escrow, from probate to closing escrow?
6 to 7 weeks.
Yeah, to get them appointed, to get the authority.
You can get them appointed, and you can buy once they're they have the ability to close escrow. I can close escrow at that point.
So like a rule of thumb would be 2 months, because then now title has to get everything, create the settlement,
Yeah.
and do all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So check this out. We got Thomas Ulysses Surya Nogueras has like 7 questions.
Wow.
So what is my responsibility to provide the bookkeeper?
your responsibility. So kind of high level, it's access to, like if you're using QuickBooks, you just give read-only access to your bank account, to your bookkeeper or your accountant, your tax professional. They can go in and read it and then pull the numbers out of it and then categorize it accordingly.
So what if you don't have QuickBooks?
If you don't have QuickBooks, get QuickBooks or get some sort of software.
Will you guys provide the QuickBooks for your clients?
Typically what we'll do is have them get a membership with QuickBooks so that they could transfer if they ever decided, hey, we want to, and you can't transfer the files too, but typically we'll have them, sign up for the membership, give us read access, and then,
Yeah.
and then go
Or
out.
if they
I
were
could
doing,
never leave my accountant.
If they're doing just the bank account, like you said,
That's
if
what
they
Eric Sage
open,
told me.
if they open just a checking account, like you said, for that property, they could give you just all those details, right? Just give you all the statements.
yeah.
And,
If you just put it on a separate account like we were talking about earlier.
So you want to, especially for a wholesaler, you want to know you want to ask your accountant. Just don't go to a random accountant. Like, have you dealt with people that do real estate investing, or have you heard of wholesaling? Like, this is where I'd be like, I don't know why enough people like recommend a CPA for me in my town, because wholesaling is different, and then a lot of it's the same. They're going to start realizing what's marketing. They're not going to have to ask you all those questions, because what you're going to do is you're going to give them your quarterly stuff, and then the accountant will come back and ask you 20 items. What are these, and what were they meant for, and where do I categorize them?
I think of PACE subject to, right? When I think of PACE Morphe, I think of subject to. Most accountants have no idea what a subject to is. So it's important that they understand the mechanisms of your business model and where the income's coming from. And the mortgage is still somebody else's name, but I'm the owner. Like there's just a lot to what we do as wholesalers, real estate, or subject to. Make sure they know. So that's a great point.
I think you should interview your CPA. Don't just have someone recommend you and say, great, I'm going to go use you, because they may not be the right CPA for you. Not saying they're a bad CPA. They just don't understand your business.
Michael, if somebody called you today, hypothetically, somebody jumps into the Facebook group and says, hey, I like this guy's vibe. He's wearing Travis Matthews. He obviously likes golf. He's a cool guy. I want to come and hire this guy. What's the typical turnaround for somebody to sit down and have a conversation with you?
Usually within 24 or 48 hours, we'll sit down, have a conversation. If they own a business, a lot of times we'll go out to them. And if they're comfortable coming to Old Town, our office is right above Maple and Ash. So we have them into the office and kind of break down, everything from a real estate agent or somebody that's wholesaling properties all the way up to big companies. So the bigger the company, obviously, the more I get Kurt involved.
Of course.
He does the high level stuff. But that's typically it's 48 hours. We can have an LLC set up literally 10 days. Arizona Corporation Commission's taking. Like everything's online now too. It used to
Which
be
is
you have to
freaking amazing.
It's so incredible. Because I remember having to fill those out by hand when I'd start companies, mail it in, and then you'd wait like 4 weeks and hope that it wasn't messed up. You didn't do it wrong.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, you're screwing people up by dropping the word fractional CFO. People don't know what that means. Can you explain what you mean by fractional CFO?
He'll be able to explain it better than I can.
You're talking about outsourcing your CFO duties. Basically, that's what you're doing. Yeah, you're almost outsourcing. Instead of hiring a
Full-time
CFO
salary guy, yeah.
Right. Which, depending on the size of your company, that might be the direction to go in. But for the majority of companies, it's better just to pay them as almost a part-time. But they're still doing the duties, but you're not having to pay all of the costs of having them on staff.
Consultant a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure.
So like you have monthly cash flow. I don't want to use my friends as an example, but it's like, okay, this is what you're making. This is how many properties you could buy in the next quarter with how you're trending. So you can start making decisions by looking at the type of money you're making to buying power for buying more houses or more rentals, or not over leveraging yourself to where, your rental portfolio is going to get over leveraged to where it's affecting your wholesale money to where you can't market property or properly. Kind of just stuff like that. They help you make decisions on how to move forward with stuff.
So next question. So basically the bookkeeper becomes your Clipfolio. I've never heard of the word Clipfolio. Maybe that's a
Is that an app, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
Ariana was talking about that.
that's got to be an app.
I gotta assume it's a financial bookkeeping app.
Yeah, like Mint or something like that.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. Like your portfolio, but yeah.
I got Mint when I first started making money, and then I saw all the stupid shit I was buying, and I just got rid of the app because I didn't want to see it.
I don't want to know.
So your S corp federal rate depends on your total revenue? Question mark.
Not total revenue. Your
Profitability.
Your net, your profitability, yeah, and then those pass through to your personal tax returns,
Got
right?
it.
Correct.
So yeah.
Let's say not a business owner, but an acquisition agent. Should they set up an LLC S corp? So let's say that I have.
Yes, my two guys are right now.
Yeah, of course.
Right, so
Absolutely.
somebody works underneath my wholesale business, and I'm 1099ing them as a sales guy.
Yep.
They should have their own LLC that they elect to have
Yes.
as an S corp.
You should be 1099ing the LLC.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, because my guys got to that point to where they're making over 60, 70, and I told them to do it this last year, and they didn't, and they're going to learn the hard way. And then I was like, you guys need to do that immediately now. Like, I know you're making 6 figures. You're going to get a really shitty tax bill at the end of the year if you don't do this quickly.
Yep.
So you can elect how often you pay your taxes every year. That's the question they had. People are asking about the quarterly versus just paying yearly.
We pay it quarterly. There's the answer.
Pay it quarterly.
He's
Yeah,
a little
don't
bit
listen to
different. That's bad advice.
Don't
not,
hold-
not bad advice. It's just his business,
If you-
right? But for the
I said I
majority-
personally do, but I'm saying I would not do that if I were getting into real
Get rid
estate.
of the money. Get it out of your pocket.
You set up 2 accounts when you set up your business. One for savings, one for the actual, the transactions you're doing. Every deal you make, you take a percentage, 30%, 25%, move it over to the savings account, and then at the end of the quarter, boom.
Do you have any clients at a 0 tax rate based on depreciation on their assets?
That's a good question for Kurt. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you want to depreciate those. The improvements on a property slowly, depreciate because of they just, obviously
Right.
homes need to be remodeled every 10 years, 15 years.
So my goal with my CPA is to be a net 0 tax rate. I've not yet been able to do that, but we're trying to buy rental properties and
Right.
depreciate the piss out of them
Yeah.
so that we can offset a lot of our other income.
Are you cost segregating them?
That's a conversation that Evo asked me, and I said I don't know the answer to that question.
You have to be if you're trying to get to net zero, because that's why we're trying to buy more and more properties.
Is that possible, or you can get close to?
No, you
net zero?
could.
I mean,
especially
ask
the way.
Mitt Romney,
That's
bro.
awesome.
Come on, of
Is he
course
net
you
zero?
can.
All right, we should probably wrap this up pretty soon. So let's go over a few more
So
questions.
basically, okay, got that. Anyone else? Let's see. Yeah, it's getting choppy audio again. So it's at the end. So let's wrap it up. The good thing is that we record all of this. For some reason, the computer that we're using, after we run it for a while, it's just like you have 3 HD cameras that are running, and it just overwhelms that computer.
They're like 10K or something. That's the problem.
So let me ask one more question. I don't really care about the live people anymore, but there's a couple questions in the Facebook group. At what point should you convert an LLC partnership to an S or C corp? Also, what would be the best entity structure for wholesaling, and what would be the best for sub 2 owner finance acquisitions?
It's a lot of
It
questions.
all depends, right? There's a lot of depends.
So
in there.
sub 2 owner finance acquisitions, I've been told because you're buying and holding those, you want them as C corps, but I could be wrong.
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not entirely sure. We can find out. Like maybe Kurt and I can actually come back and talk about.
Let's do it.
Talk about capital gains tax. And
Yes.
then if you're doing a lot of these subject twos, like let's break down the best strategy for you, which you should be doing obviously with your tax professional. But let's go over some scenarios and let him. Maybe that's a whole other. I mean, we could do an entire content series on that.
I think that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody's saying, this is great. I have an S corp and I just refied out of a flip to Airbnb, but the lender has issues with the S corp financing, so I had to transfer out of an S corp into personal name or LLC. Is there a way around refi restrictions on S corps?
That's the best way. Just pop it out of the LLC, do your refi, and then put it back in.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I had this recently. A client came to me. He has a rental property in an LLC and wants to pull some cash out on it. His banker told him to do that.
Yes.
It was like
Yeah.
it's kind of like they can't really tell him, but it's like if you did, if this was
Maybe if this
outside,
happened to you.
And I should clarify something. What we're talking about is the ownership of that asset. If it's in an LLC, the banks don't like that because they want personal liability. So they want you to deed that out into your personal name, and then you can do the refinance out of it. Okay, so there are some banks, smaller banks, boutique banks that'll let you lend in an LLC. Well, they'll lend it into the LLC, but typically it's 20% down. Typically it's a private. They're holding that, they're servicing that debt, and they're not selling that off to Freddie or Fannie. So just so we're clear, that's the ownership piece of the asset itself that we're trying to get it out of, not necessarily trying to break down the LLC. Just get the property out of its name. I don't know if that makes sense. Did I make sense?
Yes,
there?
that makes sense. So I think that it would be amazing to have you and Kurt come back.
Yeah, love to.
How can somebody get a hold of you? Actually, here's a better question. Because we currently have about 2,000 people in that creative financing group.
Yeah.
most of the people in that group are very aware of taxes and capital gains. They're not just new wholesalers.
Yeah.
There are some new wholesalers in there, but most of them are a little bit more advanced.
Based on the comments, some of them super advanced.
Very, very much. So let's say that there's a client out in Texas. Are you guys willing to do bookkeeping and CPA work for outside of the state?
We're servicing 5 different states right now.
What are those states?
We have Nebraska, Colorado, Texas, California, and Arizona.
Love it. Okay, so we should definitely get you guys back on the show, maybe in 30 days. And what we'll do is we'll do a poll, and we'll see all the questions that we can ask, and then we'll just go through and hammer those out. And you guys will have those questions because you might get a question in Texas that you're not servicing Texas that we might want to do some research on.
Yeah, and each state's a little bit different, right? Especially if some of your some people in that group are buying all over the country, right? And so those are pretty complicated.
Love it.
tax
You know,
matters,
what would be really cool too is we could do a meetup here. We could do a meetup with Michael and bring you and your partner and bring all the real estate investors here locally, and we can have a nice little meetup here with 60, 70 people that just show up, meet you, and ask questions and kind of have a panel where maybe what we do is we get a tax attorney, we get Rylas, who's an estate attorney, and then you guys bookkeeping and tax strategy company. That would be a really cool panel to do here locally. Would you guys be willing to do that?
Love to. Anytime, man. You name it, we'll be here.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have a pretty decent little following, and so we, especially with the investor group, we within a week's notice we can get 100 people here, no problem.
That is true.
Yeah.
Any closing words?
No, it was good.
Did you learn anything?
I did. I learned some things. I always learn a lot here.
All right, Pace, wrap it up for us.
All right, guys, so thank you for tuning into Saturdays with Jesse and Pace. We do this every Saturday, and it's just free-flowing. We have a different topic every week. We're bringing in professionals from all over the real estate and investing community to help you guys in your business. If you missed this, it's going to be on. If you missed the beginning of it, it's going to be put in its full HD version on YouTube in the next few days. So
What YouTube channel is that?
it's going to be on my YouTube channel, even though it should really be on yours.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We're out.